The words we heard from Esther are ones you may have never heard before. Or maybe when you decided that one day you were going to read the Bible cover to cover, you went through it, but you went through it probably pretty fast. Or maybe you heard a children's book or story in Sunday school or Bible school about Esther. But most of us have not really heard these words read, and especially all those names, and Anne will eventually forgive me for having to read the lessons today with all those names and places. But first I have to set this place and the time of this story of Esther. It takes place in the winter Persian capital of Susa. Persia had been merged together by Cyrus with Media. Together, this formed the Persian Empire. And it covered as far west as northern Greece and as far east as India. So imagine that amount of land, how many different languages, how many different customs, how many different religions were found under this one empire. This is the people that lived there. And it remained that way until 330 BCE when Alexander the Great conquered them. But the land also included the people who had been taken by the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar in 597 BCE. These are people who were taken from Jerusalem and forced to live in a place that was not their own. This is the scene where Esther comes to be. Now, if I asked you, and I will not ask you, what can you tell me about Esther? Some of us could say, I think it's a book in the Bible. Some of us could say, I think she was a queen. But beyond that, we don't know a lot about her life, unless, like I said, you just covered it in Sunday school or Bible school, probably. But here is this person who we know as queen, and many people say, look at that, women could be queens in Bible days. But if we go right to queen, what we miss is all the pain and all the horrible things that she experienced on her journey to that place in the palace. Like I said, the people were taken from Jerusalem, and they were forced to live in this land that was not their own. And they were considered second-class citizens. These are Esther's people. These are the people who had no power, who had no voice, and they were basically slaves. They tried to practice their own faith on their own, but it was always difficult to find a leader and to not get into trouble for doing so. Esther also was an orphan. Every single member of her family had died, everyone, except for an uncle Mordecai, who took her in and tried to care for her as long as he could. And then we hear in chapter 1 what happens. This king, this person who thought he was untouchable, and it seemed he was displeased with his wife's behavior. His wife who said no. That's what she did. That was her crime. He ordered all the young women from the community to be brought to be a part of his harem. That's how Esther, whose name was actually Hadashesh, which is her Hebrew name. Most of us don't know her Hebrew name because she was forced into the palace. And the only thing that probably kept her alive was her beauty. She was only judged for being beautiful. And as I list these circumstances, think of the people throughout history and today who still live under such circumstances. She was only left to be a part of the king's inner circle because she was beautiful. She found favor with the king and eventually became his queen, but that did not come without great cost to her. And like most situations, the situation arose while she was queen, where the people in power felt threatened by others. There had to be someone who was conspiring against them, and so they acted like most people in power do when they're afraid. They acted to stop whatever was getting in their way. There was one man in particular who was in the inner circle, Haman. He went to the king and said, we're in trouble here. There is a people who are causing great trouble. The words in Esther, he says, there is a certain people dispersed among the peoples in all the provinces of your kingdom who keep themselves separate. Their customs are different from those of all other people, and they do not obey the king's laws. It is not in the king's best interest to tolerate them. If it pleases the king, let a decree be issued to destroy them, and I will give 10,000 talents of silver to the king's administrators for the royal treasury.
So the king took his signet ring from his finger and gave it to Haman, the enemy of the Jews. "Keep the money," the king said to Haman, "and do with the people as you please." So this decree went out to all 127 provinces, that the officials in those places could destroy the Jewish people living in their communities. Word through Mordecai got to Queen Esther. And she didn't have much power, but the one thing she could do was enter the king's palace, his throne, without permission. But to do so, you could be executed. So you could enter when you were not called, and if the king chose for you to come forward, you got to reach out to his gold scepter and touch it, and then you were chosen. But if he did not want you there, you would be executed. So she took this chance, and she went before the throne, and he called her forward. And what he said to her was, "Whatever you want, even half of my kingdom." Now think about that. What she could have done with that chance. Instead, she requested a banquet with he and Haman. And at that point is where she asked for this decree to be overturned, for the Jewish people to be saved. But she risked everything to make that happen. And it could have not gone that way. But as in most things like this, word got out that the Jews were going to be killed, so there were uprisings in many communities. And almost 100,000 people died. Most of them were non-Jewish. But when they conquered these people who were going to kill them, instead of plundering, they left everything. They left everything. And that is where Purim was established as a holiday. Because Queen Esther and her people said, "We know what suffering is. We know what it is to be treated without respect. Let's not do the same." So the holiday of Purim is a time where they give to the poor. And they have banquets for people that are usually not seated at their table. And it continues to this day. One thing we know about the book of Esther, it has been a controversial book in the Bible forever. And one of the main reasons is it does not have any mention of God. If you read it cover to cover, there is no mention of God, which made a lot of the early special reformers nervous. John Calvin didn't even write anything about it. There's one time the book of Esther is mentioned. Martin Luther, in all of his ways of being wordy, said, "I am so great an enemy to Esther that I wish it had not come to us at all, for it has too many heathen unnaturalities." Once talking to Erasmus, he said it deserves to be regarded as non-canonical. What's interesting is it is still there. It was voted in, it's part of our canon, and we do read it occasionally. So why is it there? Brandon Ambersano, I think, has the best answer. He says Esther is the only book in the Bible that doesn't specifically refer to God. Perhaps it's one of the lessons that God's hiddenness is not God's absence. I think that's the best thing we can take from the book of Esther, to be reminded that what looks like forgottenness, what we learn from Esther is our timeless lessons. That there is always the possibility of strength and hope, even in the worst circumstances. If the beginning of Esther's life were made into a movie, most of us would eat a box of Kleenex. It is tragic. It is horrific. It is horrible what human beings have done to one another throughout history and continues to this day. And yet somehow God uses this woman who lost everything to save God's people. We have a sense of deliverance, much like Jesus, where she delivers her people when she had nothing going for her except to say, "The other, I will love my neighbor." And she finds a strength. What we also see about Esther is that the book makes fun of, and if you ever read this in a Jewish setting, they actually are booing every time Haman is mentioned. They are laughing and they are shouting against the people in power. Because what we find in Esther is it makes fun of those in society who think the whole place will fall apart if a woman makes choices for herself. It honors Esther, who chooses to go where she is not invited and still makes a difference. We have this incredible story that just disturbs me from chapter 1, and yet we find the hiddenness of God. We find God acting in ways we could have never predicted. And then we hear words that most of us may have heard at some point, we may not remember it came from Esther. Esther to do something. He says, "Do not think that in the king's palace you will escape any more than all the others. For if you keep silence at such a time as this, relief and deliverance will rise from the Jews from another quarter." For if you keep silence at such a time as this. We can think of a long list of places and times we have done that in our lives, and the need continues. For if you keep silence in such a time as this, when God's children are locked in cages, when all they're doing was seeking freedom. If you keep silence at such a time as this, when people are judged by their race, religion, sexual orientation, or looks. If you keep silence at such a time as this, when people who have privilege treat other people like they're disposable objects. If you keep silence at such a time as this, when still millions of people are sold into slavery in the world, God is calling us. And I think of Esther, who had no power, who had no way of making it in her world, who was just used as an object and yet found a way to establish God's kingdom where she was, in the place she found herself. So I apologize if you came here today thinking we were going to hear a story about a queen and it was going to be a Disney version. I'm sorry you're disappointed. The story of Esther is a story instead about a God who's never mentioned, and a God who shows the possibility of strength and hope. We find this God who calls, claims, names us through our baptism, who gives us hope and strength to give bold service to our neighbor. Amen. Let us pray. Gracious God, we give you thanks that you have stories in our life of our parents, our grandparents, aunts and uncles, our godparents, and people like Esther, who show us that you do not quit acting in the world just because it seems you are absent. But instead, in your hiddenness, we find grace and mercy, hope and strength. We ask that you give us joy for the journey. We pray this in Jesus' holy name.